Hello, Physics Heretic here. This is going to be a topic that many people will find either aggravating or uncomfortable, and it has to do with knowledge, who should have it, and more importantly, what knowledge people shouldn't have. Now, most people think that science should be available to everyone. Every piece of knowledge should be available to the public. Well, that's nice, but let me give you an example on why that wasn't a good idea. Let's take us back to the 1930s. Groups, nations were starting to fight against each other. It was the beginnings before World War II. A lot of unscrupulous governments were looking to conquer the world. And in that framework of oppression and evil, many scientists came to the United States, where I live. They left their nations for the freedom. And during the early stages of that war, it was decided by the United States to create a project that eventually led to the atomic bomb. It was called the Manhattan Project. Now, whatever you think of the validity of that action, it changed our world. But please try to consider if that data of the Manhattan Project at the time was disseminated to all other countries. Would you want Mussolini to have the atomic bomb? How about Japan having it in the early stages of the war? Or Stalin before he went to war with Adolf Hitler, which of course would have been the worst person to have the atomic bomb? Now that's an obvious reason why certain knowledge shouldn't be publicly shared. I encountered this when I was in college. Several of my professors were working on a project, and those same professors were working on a government top secret project. By chance, I put 2 and 2 together and got 4, and realized that both projects were one and the same. One was publicly funded and in the news. One was in the news and military funded. The point was that data should not be disseminated. And when I discovered it, they came to me and said, please, they being professors, not the government, for national security, don't discuss it further. I didn't. It was the right thing to do. But let me give you another example. In chemistry, there were 2 chemists. One was a United States citizen, grew up here in the United States. The other person came from an oppressive communist country. And the person that came from the authoritarian country was having an argument over some beers with his American counterpart. And he said, the person from the oppressive government says that the government would eventually shut down any free speech that was dangerous to the people. Because that was his experience. Well, the American, familiar with how strongly we believe in the First Amendment, said no. The Americans will not block a publishing of a book just because it is bad to put out into the public. So the two parted, made a gentleman's bet, and the one person wrote a book, the person from the communist countries. And it is one of the most evil books ever written. I'm not giving you the name, but for reference purposes, I do have a copy of it, and I was shocked when I read it. The book is a listing. No. It is a cookbook for the top 20 chemical weapons. This man went and wrote how to make the most devastating and disgusting substances on this earth in your own home. Now, to be honest, the book's an idiot detector because anyone who follows the book will end up dead. But he made the book, he had it published. The publishing company, their lawyer looked at it and said, no, we have to give up the copyright. It was because someone one day will use this book and kill lots of people. In fact, the Japanese sarin attacks maybe came from this book. The point being, that was knowledge that should never be in the public domain. And that's what this topic is about. It's about forbidden knowledge. Now, many of my friends that worked in high tech and other areas where free flow of information is rather common challenged me. They said, what knowledge should be forbidden? How should that happen? And I said, well, knowledge isn't just this magical thing that belongs to everyone. We try to share as much knowledge as possible. That's the proper thing to do. But there is some knowledge, a small subset, that if people of lesser character had it available, they would misuse it badly. Perfect example is, the atomic weapons. Even today, there are several despotic nations that are still attempting to build atomic weapons and deploy them and use them against people. Not all countries that have atomic weapons do that. In fact, most of the major nations that have them don't use them to threaten others. But some of the countries trying to obtain those weapons have stated clearly that if they had those weapons, they would use them. So how does it apply to the project I'm doing here in heretical physics? Well, it's twofold. The first is there are certain pieces of knowledge that I have discovered that I will never share with you. Please don't get upset about it. It's for your safety and your benefit. That knowledge is concepts such as the structural difference between U-235, which is used in atomic weapons, and U-238, which is used in fusion bombs, but is not naturally radioactive. I know the exact difference between the two, structurally. But I'm not going to let that knowledge become public domain in case that someone would take that knowledge and use it to make building atomic weapons much easier. It's not worth the risk to all of mankind. Furthermore, there is some people that I do not share the science website with. A perfect example are two of the nations that are some of the most dangerous users of, or trying to use, of technology. First one, North Korea. North Korea cannot access my physics website. They're blocked. Also, Iran is blocked. North Korea is already building and has threatened people with nuclear weapons. Iran has already stated previously that if they had them, they would use them against Israel. They're also been very dishonest and lying about the creation of nuclear weapons or the materials to make them. So both countries have earned a block from my version of physics. Now, you might ask, why am I doing this? Am I doing it for politics, or am I doing it for ideas or religion? Or no, none of it. I'm doing it based on actions, on behaviors. If your nation acts foolishly, if it acts like a dictatorship, why should we share anything with you? People also may ask, who gives me the right to make that decision? Well, it's mine. These are my discoveries. They're not the world's. They're not a nation's. They are mine. God has graced me with this knowledge, but He's also demanded of me to be responsible in who gets it, who is helped with it, and how it helps this world. Let me give you another example of something that I will not be sharing. The nuclear structure of gold and the various elements around it, well, that could easily be manipulated. Once you know the structure and how to manipulate it in a more industrial fashion, which my nuclear physics will allow you to do, changing one element to another becomes rather easy. But the thing we don't want to happen is one nation, financially strapped, building an infrastructure to convert, like alchemy, lead into gold. Now, to be honest, lead is not the best candidate to start with, but it makes a good point. In doing so, something terrible would happen. At first you think, hey, making money, great. That action would drastically destabilize the financial system that all nations use. Once something that is precious and in limited quantity goes from that to massively abundant and just, junk on the floor, well, that kind of turmoil is what causes wars and would cause many people to be harmed. This isn't to protect the banks or the wealthy or nation states. It's to protect people, because those people, you watching this, are what are going to be harmed by someone's unchallenged greed. So, there are two basic types of forbidden knowledge. And as the owner of that knowledge, I'm going to block specific groups for their actions. And it might not be their individual actions. In fact, it isn't. But they're under the control of people, or more importantly, nation states or organizations that have demonstrated regularly a complete disdain for peace and civility. You harm other people, you don't get the benefit of knowledge. Then there's certain topics that overall no one should ever get. I'm not going to disclose which one it is, but when I discovered the first of these, I realized how the whole world could be destroyed by the simple behavior of people if this knowledge came to light. The human race is not ready. There are way too many groups such as terrorists, or as rogue nation states, or crazy guy next door, or girl. Hey, I don't want to be sexist here. There's too many destabilized people in this earth, all of which means some types of knowledge that makes certain aspects of life maybe easier, but definitely more dangerous, should not be disseminated. Now, later on, when the human race grows up a little more, they should be available. But today, I have to say, terribly sorry. You're not ready yet. Now, before everyone gets major indigestion over this, the only people that would want this knowledge are people that would misuse it to harm you. For example, you really don't need to know how to take a uranium sample and get it down to 95% U-235. You don't. The only person that would want to do that is a person to make a bomb to kill people. We already have enough of it. We have too much of it. We don't need that anymore. Not to say I'm into complete nuclear disarmament, because that would be a problem too. What I'm saying is, knowledge to make that easier really doesn't help mankind. So, I will wrap up with this point. Everyone understand that there's a large amount of knowledge that I'm going to give to the world. Some of it I will probably sell, make available for price, but still that's giving it. You have to pay the price, but you get the knowledge. It's available. There is a very small fraction of topics that I will not be making available. You can focus on that small amount, or you can be much wiser and look at the lifetime supply of new information. The whole new levels of chemistry, the whole new levels of particle physics, the whole new levels of understanding physics, relativity, being able to travel faster than light, building the infrastructure so that we can start mining the asteroids and colonizing the rest of our solar system. I'm leaving you with a massive amount of work to do. So why worry about 1, 2, maybe 3 little things? This is The Heretic. Thank you very much for your time.